Alright everyone, so we're now ready to move on to the practice pumpkin. This is just the practice. Remember, we've already drawn the pastel contour lines, thick and thin, dark and light, rough and smooth, to create the curves and the directional changes of the pumpkin's edges. Remember, we've already completed two flat wash on top of pastel lines, a graded wash, and a variegated wash. The flat wash should look fairly even from top to bottom, side to side throughout. If there are little variations like these darker areas and some lighter areas, that's not a big deal. That happens with a flat wash. But the idea is not to make it a gradual change. That's what we do in a graded wash. We let it gradually get lighter from top to bottom or side to side or bottom to top. On purpose, so it's lighter here than it is here, more green, less green. And then remember, the variegated wash is where you change from one pure color to another pure color. Where they meet up, they merge, and sometimes they run together in streaks, or they just gently turn from one color to another color, changing into a third color where they meet up. This one is more of that kind, where it's a gradual change from one to the other, but it's a variegated wash because it's two or more colors that come together and make a third color. They variegate, they vary, they change. So we're going to do one or more of those on this pumpkin you're practicing. Like I said previously, you should have a bigger brush for this work. This is going to take way much more time than you really want to try to get this technique to work with this little tiny brush. So if you have the capability to get a bigger brush, please do. The brush that I've got here is a flat, and it's not a big one, but I've got many bigger ones than this at home that are my own personal ones. But this is going to cover a bigger area than that little one, and I've got bigger ones that would do it even faster. With this, remember, you want to have some clean water, and actually this is my clean water, and a bucket of water to clean out your brush. This is for putting water on the paper and for picking up your pigment. So let's go over the steps. Remember, you want to make your wash, your pigment first, and then you put water on the paper, and then you pick up the pigment and you put it into the water. That's what makes it the wash. So let's make it. I'm going to go with, I really like this variegated wash technique, so I'm going to use those two colors for this. The process, I'm going to use a smaller brush to do them. I'm going to clean out my brush there first, and then I'm going to pick up clean water, and I'm going to do the blue and the green. So I'm going to just start with the green. I'll put the green over here since it's a little closer to this end than that one, and this one can go there. So remember, you saturate your brush, you put the brush into the water, and then into the pigment, the tray of color, and you just rotate it, turning it round and round and round, mixing the water into the pigment until it makes kind of a paste, and then you drag it across the surface like this to unload it from that tray. I'm picking it up and unloading it right here so that I can take it from there and upload it onto my artwork. Clean water again to do another application. Now, hopefully you won't run out of paint before you paint your big picture. If you use up one color here and it's all gone, then you'll have to choose other colors from your palette to paint the big picture. So you have to think about that. How much am I using, and am I going to want to use that color on my final artwork, or am I just practicing and it doesn't matter what color goes there? Now that's a good start. I want to add some more water here just to have more available so I don't run out when I'm doing the painting on my pumpkin, right? So it mixes in. The more water I put in, the less pure it looks, and the thinner it will go down on the paper. So I don't want to add too much water. Clean out my brush really well. Tap off the extra water. Get water. Clean water here, dirty water there. Now I'm going to add the water to the blue, download it over here, right? So I need to mix it again, saturate that blue. And remember, you want to not be holding your palette. I'm holding it just so it's closer to the camera, so you can see what I'm doing more easily. Download it after you think you've got a nice paste. Just drag it across that little sticky uppy thing. I'm sure there's a technical name for it. All right. So once you think you've got enough there, I'm going to do a little bit more water. Whoa, that's a lot of water though. Pat it, pat it, pat, pat, pat. Turn, turn, turn. And unload it, right? Drag it across that bar that sticks up. Get some clean water, mix it in. Now I've got enough that I should be able to do my technique. And remember, it doesn't matter what color you use here, again, just like it did on the other practices. But I do want you to practice something other than a flat wash, because a variegated wash or a graded wash makes things look more three-dimensional. A flat wash does just what it says. It makes it look flat. So you don't want to make a flat-looking pumpkin. You want to try to make it look round and curved, right? All right, so I'm going to just unload as much of that blue as I possibly can. Boy, there's still a lot in my brush, so I'm going to move it over here too, because I don't want to waste it. It's a beautiful color, and I can use it, I know. All right, clean out my brush. So you can see how much blue there was still in that brush, right? Tap out the extra. Now I've got my pigment ready. Now I can put clean water on my pumpkin. We're going to save the stem for last. So don't put water where your pumpkin is, where your stem is. You can see I didn't quite clean out my brush. And when I'm doing the pumpkin, I want to go with the curves of the pumpkin. I want to drag my brush right up to the outlines, the contour lines, but I want to go the same direction that the shape goes, the contours go. That way, if you see my brush strokes when I'm all done, they'll just enhance the roundness and the curvature of the pumpkin. Be careful not to overbrush. If you brush and brush and brush, you're going to damage the pastel lines, and they'll just kind of look muted and not as exciting if you brush them away. Go right up to your outer edges at the bottom and at the top. And if you want to, I think I showed you this in class, but if you want to leave white paper, you can. You just don't put any water down, and it won't move it into that area. So staying inside the outlines, that's what we do, is we create color that goes up to those outlines. I'm going to do the blue on the bottom and the green on top. So I'm going to do the green first. Okay, it's a little bit more water in my brush, just to make sure I've got enough here to move. And like I said, I'm going to go with the direction of the pumpkin, and I'm trying not to over brush as I do it, but I want to get it down where it looks good. I'll show you some tips. I'm going a little farther than I meant to, so I'm going to stop there and go back this way. I forgot I was going to do a graded wash. I'm sorry, a variegated wash with blue and green. I'm doing green on top, blue on the bottom. I could have chosen the other way because they're both about the same darkness. So I go to this edge right here where it starts curving from the middle down to the bottom. I'm going to bring a little bit more of it to the sides. Alright, so let me show you a tip. If I wanted to make it a little bit purer, darker, I can get pure pigment from my paint tray right here. Get a little bit more out of it without getting it in my water, right? And then I can go in some places and just apply a little bit more stronger, more intense, pure green so that it really looks deeper, darker, all right? So I can do that if I want to, but I don't have to, right? There it's a little darker. And whenever I do this, I want to make sure it's still wet. I don't want to do it after it's already dried, because then it leaves little brush strokes, and that's not what I want to do with this project. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the blue while it's still wet. Tap out the water. I'm going to clean out a little bit more. All right, just a little bit of water in my brush. Without tapping, I'm just dabbing to get it to fly out if it's going to be too much. I pick up my blue, and now I'm just working from the bottom up, and I can tell you that the paper's already drying out. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit more water in my brush so it's really fluid. If yours does that, you might want to stop, reapply water, and then go back in with your pigment. Alright, so I'm just going right on top of it in some places where the green already is, maybe right along these edges here where it goes down into a crevice. Might be a good place where it be a little darker, right? So it could do it even up to the top, maybe into this area here. And then, let's see, let's do a little bit more of that because that's kind of cool. So this is still a variegated wash, but it's putting it where you want it a little bit more. And I really like the darker, deeper values down here, so I'm going to put a little bit more. That beautiful blue there, down at the bottom, will give it a little more weight, a little bit more like it's curved away from the light, and darker values. So I'm just going to do it purposely, right? Okay, and maybe a little bit more over here too. So I'm staying inside the lines. Now I'm going to clean out my brush, put my brush down, and now is the fun part. You can twist and turn, tilt it. Don't twist it, but you can turn it, tilt it, so it'll run it into itself. See that variegation right there? That's beautiful. This one that's going there too. So this is where you get to have fun. You don't want to overdo it, but letting it tilt and turn, like I still want it to be darker, bluer down there than here to make it look curved and round. So I'm not going to completely manipulate it to go those ways. All right. I'm going to put a little blue over here on this side too, I think. As long as it's still wet, it'll work. Now I put in more than I wanted to, so I cleaned out my brush, I tapped out the extra water, and I'm going to come in and do what's called mopping. If you have a clean brush, clean and drier brush, you can come back in and you can mop up, you can remove some of the stuff that you put in, especially if it was too much. As long as it's still wet, you can do that. After it starts drying, it's not worth it, okay? Let's say I want to put in a little bit more green right there. Oh, yeah. Just to modulate it a little bit, give it a little bit more depth. So while it's still wet, I can do all these things. I don't want to keep brushing too much into it. The more I brush, the more I'm going to damage my lines. So I'm going to let that dry. Let's see my pumpkin finish. I'm going to let that dry now. And once it's dry, I'll do the stem. And then I could practice a flat wash or a graded wash in the sky and on the ground. And we'll probably do that in class too. And I'll probably do it for another video too. So when I do the stem, I'll probably do the ground. I'll let those dry, and then I'll do the sky. I don't want to do the stem and the sky at the same time because they'll run together. So I don't want to do the stem while this is wet because it'll all run into it, right? We want to keep them away from each other so that they don't do this. If we want it to be a different color, we need to keep them away from each other. So that's it for the practice pumpkin at this point.